was, or if we had to go into administration. It's not in everyone's interest. We want you to get 100% of your capital to get your delayed coupons, and the quickest way for us to do that is through funding. I'll turn to the funding. The funding, we've now largely agreed everything. The last change that they wanted was to reduce the term from 18 months to 12 months, and our lawyers are actually sending the paperwork over for that to happen. I just want to talk you through what that means and why they've asked for it. When Peter and I were first talking to these people, we asked for 18 months. Woodville asked for 18 months. And the reason we asked for 18 months is because we had suffered the delays that we had suffered historically. The March opening date had not occurred at that time, and we were still a little bit cautious of building in some space in case there was any continued delay. So we pushed for 18 months. They wanted 12 months from the off. They came to us and said, look, 12 months is more satisfactory to us. I don't know what word I'm looking for there, but we want 12 months, and all of these months have passed, so can we agree on 12 months? We had, and when I say we as Woodville, had no issue with reducing the term to 12 months, because even with the delays that we talked about, with FOS and getting the money in 2027, etc., we still have a 6-month window in 2027 to get that money back out, because they will take over this book and they will get those cases. They're at the front of the queue, along with, some other law firms, of course. But, there's thousands of these claims going in on a daily basis, and they will be dealt with on an arising basis, according to the dates they've submitted. So we had no issue with changing it to 12 months. And that's where we are with them at the moment. Now, I appreciate that we've given you many, many updates. I also appreciate that we've given you dates that we thought things were going to happen and dates that have failed to materialize. Whenever we have sent out any of our historic updates, they have been given with the information that is available to us at that time. Okay? So any time there is a change, whilst we share your frustrations and, we appreciate that, there are many people on this call and, they are upset, angry, frustrated. We do share those emotions with you, but we share them globally on behalf of all of you, okay? And we are trying our best wherever possible to get, these matters dealt with, in a timely, lost my train of thought, in a timely manner as possible. But we also have to recognise that when we go to our lawyers and ask them to make amendments to agreements, we're not their only client. So last week when we asked our lawyers to make amendments, then, it's taken them days to do it because they just don't, they have other matters they have to deal with. So this funding, let's talk about the funding. The funding is, and I know we've said it for a long time, there isn't anything else that we have to do. It's then back to the funders and it's all on them. So that is where we are at this moment in time. I'm going to actually move from this point now, which seems a strange pivot, but I'm actually going to go into your questions at this moment in time, because some people have asked questions which we'll cover what where I want to sort of go with the funding. And these questions that we are looking at, these questions have been posed to us before the webinar. Bear with me, I'm just going to try and quickly find them actually. There we are, I'm looking at the wrong spreadsheet. I just want to move on to this because this funding, we've been asked how it's going to be treated, okay? So this first $50 million is going to be broken up into 3 parts. $10 million, $20 million, and another $20 million. The first $10 million has to be used for new lending. We cannot repay anybody and refinance anybody, I should say, out of that. The reason that it has to go onto new lending is because the money has to be used to create income, and the income has to be left in the escrow account under the security trustee for this particular line, to make sure that we can repay the interest payments on a monthly basis for that facility. Okay. The second and the third tranches, which are the 220 millions that I referred to, then there is a proportion of that can go into refinance, and there is a proportion of that can again goes into new lending, again to create income. And the reason we do that is because we have to repay outstanding coupons and then get on top and up to date with those coupons, and then obviously continue to be able to meet our obligations for our coupons going forward. So we have to create new income as well as refinancing. Okay. When we have that money, it's going to take a couple of days. We can't do it all in one day for each of those tranches. I'm talking mainly about the 220 millions. So there'll be a book of people that we need to refinance that will be put forward, and that information is current information. It's historic information. Those details are already in our data room. They're already accessible, and they're already sort of being looked at and those kind of things. The new loans, obviously, that is going to be new information. So what we're going to do is try to ask that they sort of issue these tranches in two separate transactions again, so that the money for the refinancing can be done very quickly, and the money for the new lending, if they do need to do some more auditing and whatnot, then we can do that separately, so that we could try to speed up the arrival of the money. Okay, so I hope that answers the question that was asked of us as to how. I'm not going to use anybody's name. I'll use a first name. I'll just say John. I hope, John, that answers your question about how we plan to use these financial tranches. Okay. Now, you also asked us about timings. Now, I can't give you timings. I appreciate that's the $1 million question you all want to hear. After is my money safe? 2 is when am I getting my money? We've given so many dates, as I've said, that have moved, that are outside of our control, that we cannot influence, that I'm loath to give any more dates. What I can tell you as a procedural matter is that our intention is, as soon as each tranche is dealt with, we apply for the next one and the next one, and not just on this $50 million, continuously through any other future tranches that we might, that we will be applying for in time to come. So there comes a point there that once we have then caught up to date with anything that's late, outstanding, and whatnot, and repaid and refinanced people for their capital and for their coupon payments, then we'll be on an as a rising basis. We'll be back on normal service, okay? And we will be continually looking to make sure that the finance is brought in ahead, to make sure that we go back to we used to have cash reserves. We used to have a few million of cash reserves. So there'll be, we're looking to get back on that so that your coupons and your capital will be paid on their due dates, that there'll be no delays. And that will take a little bit of time for us to get back into that normal regularity. And that's why, I think Pete mentioned it already, that's why we want to continue with the Zooms, because there will be some people that once they're paid, you may decide not to join them. You may want to join us as we go through these next few weeks, because you might want to keep having the updates on the full scheme anyway. Okay, so I think I've addressed those questions. So we are looking to get back on track, get back to normal business as soon as possible. When we do pay capital by this refinancing, or when it becomes due, any payment of capital that has been repaid late, there will be compensatory interest paid to you for the number of days that we are late. So if you were due your money and we paid you 60 days late at 10%, we would do the calculation. What is the daily rate at 10% of your investment money? You divide it by 365. It gives you the daily rate. That will be added to your capital sums. We have some people where we've repaid their capital and we've still delayed on paying their final coupon, but that's because coupons need to be paid out of income. Refinancing is refinancing. Okay, but you will be compensated for those late payments. I'm going to move on to our Q&As that were submitted ahead of the call, and then if we haven't got time to get through all of the questions, because I can see a load of questions coming in on this Zoom, don't feel that we're ignoring you. What we're going to do is to take those questions and we're going to put them into a questions and answers document, and then they'll be issued to you by the close of this week. So if your question doesn't get answered right now, then it will be answered, and everybody will be that's on this webinar will be given this Q&A, and you'll all have the answers, whether it's your question or somebody else's. Okay, so I'm just preempting that because I'm just looking at the timelines and I don't know if we'll get through them all. So I've got a few questions off a person that have asked about the 2025 ISINs, and they've asked me what is the official status of the 2025 ISIN bonds. They are extended, so they're not in default, okay? So the current status is that when the vote occurred to extend them, that extension has been carried forward. So currently they're not in default and they are awaiting payment. I want to touch on why that's very important for that status to be the status of play, that if they were put into default, you then only have a 14-day window in which to repay that money, or they stay in default. And if they stay in default, it's much more cloudy as to how we can pay. One payment going through the platform that then gets distributed back to you is a known quantity for us. Now, some of you, many of you might be aware of when we had the vote, we tried to do the vote and it turned into a pig's ear. There's no two ways about it. The first vote was done. It turned out it wasn't done strictly according to the rules. So then we had to go back through the debacle of getting it reissued, more meetings, and then it took quite a bit of time. The reason that debacle happened was twofold. One, because the notices that appear on the Crest platform were not filtered down to the underlying investor. That problem was then exacerbated, and I don't know if everybody that is in the ISIN knows this. We don't actually know who you are unless you identify yourselves to us. We don't know who you are. Your investment is one investment from the platform. That's how it transacts back to us, and they know who you are, but they can't give us your information. We don't know who you are, so we can't come to you with information. So the official status of the bonds being extended and not in default is critical for the fact that, one, it's not in default, but two, that it leaves the door open so that when we can then pay you, that money can then come through the platform to you. The second question that we were asked is that holders of the US dollar 25 ISIN received a coupon payment earlier in the year, but that the euro one was not paid. And can we clarify the reason for that discrepancy? There is no discrepancy, it was paid. Again, I can't do anything other than recommend you go back to your platform, and I'm sounding quite naive because I don't know what it looks like from your side, unfortunately, so I can't even say to you, look at this screen or this part of your part of the platform. I don't have experience of it. So all I can do is confirm that it was paid, and therefore you should go back to the people that you would normally speak to ask them why they haven't distributed that money to you. The other question in relation to the ISIN, the final question in relation to the ISIN, is what is our strategy for managing the 26 ISIN bonds, specifically concerning their redemption and coupon payments? Our strategy is to repay them on the date that they become due in 2026. Okay, I think that's a date in September off the top of my head, and we don't expect to be in this position in September, so we expect them to be paid on the arising date. I'm going to move on to somebody else's questions now. Pete dealt with that one. The question is, given the lack of firm repayment dates, can you proceed with a talisman claim? Okay. And what are the firm and committed settlement dates that Woodville could share with us? Right. I'll deal with the insurance piece first, okay? I'm going to go slightly off on tangent here. And again, I don't want anything that I say to be misconstrued in any negative or aggressive manner. I am merely trying to give you the best information for you to make the best choices to protect your capital and to try to make sure that the company is there to pay you 100%. I will not deny, or we will not deny our contractual obligations. I've already stated that. We will not deny that we are in breach of some of those obligations, and we will not deny that you have remedy for some of those breaches. That is a fact. We're not trying to escape that fact. What I'm going to move on is what are the consequences of legal attacks, winding up orders, statutory demands, insurance claims. I'll start with the insurance claims. Talisman will process your claim. Talisman will investigate and pay out your claim once they've got to that stage that they've done whatever their processes are, made an adjudicated that your claim is a good claim, and if that happens, and I have to say if because I'm not the insurer, then they will pay you out. Talisman, for the record, are the insurers behind the new funding. So whilst I will not ask you not to make any claims for Talisman, I'm just going to set our stall out. And again, this is not in any way, shape or form to deny our culpability and our obligations to you. It's just to ask you to make a commercial view on certain actions. If Talisman suddenly received a huge amount of insurance claims, they will deal with those insurance claims. However, they may come a point where they go, this is a risk too high for us, because they are the insurer for the new fund. They may decide that they want to withdraw. They can't withdraw anything that they are historically obliged to meet, but what they may decide is that they no longer will place insurance for the new funding. If they withdraw the insurance, then the funding will go. It comes back to what I told you earlier. If we don't get the funding, we're back to the two options. Do we wait for FOS? Do we have to put the company into administration? If we go into administration, the administrator gets paid. So if you are able and entitled to make a claim and you want to make a claim, I am not asking you not to. I am just explaining to you that there are potential consequences to the funding if you do so. Any legal attacks. Now, naturally, we are having legal attacks. Again, we're not absolving ourselves of our contractual liabilities for you. There will come a time that we cannot meet and overcome those legal attacks. If every single one of you issued a formal claim of some kind against us, we absolutely would have to look at going into administration. Again, I'm going to come back onto the Armageddon on an administration process. You will definitely not get paid till next year. The administrator will just sit back and say, I cannot influence the FOS scheme. I will wait for the settlements. When I've got the settlements, I will distribute it to you, and I'm getting paid before anyone else. So I'm not saying to you, I'm not asking any of you to not do anything. I'm not asking any of you to curtail or waiver your legal rights, but I'm asking you to think of the commercial realities about any of that kind of attack, and there comes a point that if we can't sustain it, then that is going to be the alternative. Okay? So I just want to be clear on that. The quickest way for us to repay you, and going back to the funding, is the funding. I appreciate the frustration with the delays that the funding has taken. And I also understand that, us not being able to give you concrete dates further exacerbates the situation. But we can't control how quickly our funder reacts and when we get the money. What we can promise you is that when the money arrives with us, we will be deploying that money out through refinancing and new loans as quick as we possibly can. We can only contract with our